Hello YouTube, this is Ben Gessel. I'm going to make some more videos here today. Um, and shortly, kind of past the busy point. And so I'll be able to do some things finally I've been wanting to do for a while. Shortly here. Anyway, by bit. So um, on this video I'm going to talk a little bit about World War II, but more specifically in reference to the board game Axis and Allies. And you'll see why this is kind of an interesting subject here in just a bit. But at the outset, I wanted to just mention that I've been told this before. Someone mentioned this before to me. There's an older gentleman who fought in World War II. Was in the Navy, I believe. He made it quite clear that war was not fun. That it was terrifying and hard and uh, uh, he was really adamant about that point. But I think for some people, though, there are some people that enjoy war. Uh, well, General George Patton, otherwise he probably wouldn't be doing it. I mean, there's a side to it that's enjoyable for some, but I guess I don't know. That's not what I want to talk about. But basically, uh, so I'm kind of talking about two different things here in a way. The board game Axis and Allies. Sorry, my hair's. Board game Axis and Allies, and the real war, World War II. Um, and I realize that war is age double hockey stick, right? It's hell, right? So it's yeah, okay. When you get your arm blown off or whatever, your fingers blown off, or you kill someone for the line of it's all just it's really it changes people, I think. But so okay. Let's start with the board game, and we'll go to the real thing here. But the board game Axis and Allies has gone through a number of different changes over time, and I do mean a number of different. I mean, there's all these different editions. I was trying to buy it a while back, and it's like you have to try to find now in certain game stores the right one that you remember playing. And if it isn't quite the right one, you're gonna notice it right off the bat. And there's one in particular that I like. And I think it's just, you know, I don't know. I think, do I have it? I mean, I have Axis and Allies 1941. I can look up the one I have right now. If you hold on 1 second, let me see if I can get it. So this is the one I have, Axis and Allies, right? The World War II strategy game, 1941. It might be kind of reverse direction here. You can kind of, the letters are kind of, I don't know, but you kind of see, let's come back here, Axis and Allies, 1941. And, I think it looked a little bit like the one that I remember playing, but it isn't quite the same one. I mean, it's a little different. So, anyway, it's a little frustrating. It's a little frustrating to try to track down the right one. And I guess the one I'm looking for has Eisenhower on the front, along with Admiral Chester Nimitz. Doesn't have Roosevelt, and it has some Germans. It has some Germans troops that were kind of creeping up the side. I think France, something like that, Normandy. And then it had a Japanese guy who was kind of doing his little sword thing and fire. I don't know, it was a little different. Okay, so the thing about Axis and Allies that makes this game really unique is that more than almost any game I think I've ever played, you really you really need to have all players at the outset know how to play the game. Or at least it can take hours and hours to understand this game in such a way that you can play it without too many hitches. This is not a game where you can just jump into it and hey, yeah. So this is kind of a, it's a strategy game, and there's a lot of little. What do we do in this situation, this situation, this situation? So you need to have everybody that plays this game. And again, there's many different editions, so you want to make sure that you have the right one. I showed you the one I have, but I don't think it's not the one that I would like to have, right? So I just anyway, you have to notice these little things. Okay, so that all being said, so you should have everybody that wants to play read up on the instructions for the specific edition that you have. And that can be another. You have to make sure that you have everybody reading the same, rule book. And because this rule book isn't exactly short, it's so anyway. Just keep that in mind. The other thing too is that just regarding the board game, in my experience, this is just thinking the strategies and gameplay and everything. In my experience, Russia, the way that Russia is set up, at least in the game that I remember, I don't know about this game, but in this edition, I think Russia might be slightly more powerful, but not by, I think it's about the same. Russia is the weakest country at the outset. And so, I mean, whoever plays Russia, it is a matter of just survival. How well can you survive Germany's onslaught at the beginning? And if you get lucky enough, you can survive. I mean, there's probably a little bit better than 50% chance that Germany will, Germany at least gain a lot of ground. It will at least gain a lot of ground in Russia. I'll put it that way. But it's a question of what else is happening in that arena of Europe. If Britain doesn't do anything, and in the game I remember, Britain was kind of a little bit hard to get into Europe at first. Everything was very fortified by Germany. But if Britain kind of starts to have some success, Russia is going to be in really good shape. But if Britain isn't getting involved, or the United States isn't getting involved at the outset, Russia's going to be up a creek, and there's a fairly good chance, at least there's a chance that Germany will beat Russia, take it over. So Russia is the weakest country, but again, there's so much land in Russia. Germany has to take over a lot of ground, or at least capture the capital, and it's doable. But Germany has to put all of its resources. Or you think if Germany gets kind of lucky, it can kind of do it quickly. But of course, if Russia survives, then yeah, it can do okay. It'll do okay. Anyway, we know historically that toward the end of World War II, Russia got more powerful, of course. Much more powerful. Right. Okay, so, but, again, just relating to the real war, we really should give Russians much more respect for holding off Germany. And it's true that, there are many, many casualties that the Russians suffered at the hands of the Germans early on. And we just don't. We need to remember that. I think a bit more. So then, okay, England would probably be the second weakest country, especially because, yes, Britain has troops all over the world, but they're kind of scattered and they're kind of in places that um, they're not. I mean, they're in India and they're in Australia, and I don't know, these little remote places in Asia that or I don't know, a little bit in Africa maybe, but and they're just not in places where either you would want to fortify them. You could if you still have a country, but they're not easily. They're not as valuable, and they're not as valuable in terms of their industrial number that you know. Anyway, it's an industrial thing. You'll know when you play the game, but they're not as valuable. They're easily taken over. They can be easily taken over by either Germany or Japan. Um, so yeah, right off the bat, the Allies, Russia and Britain are they can't quite compete with Japan and Germany. Um, but yeah, I mean, so that's the way the game is set up. So they have to rely on, and I'll get to the main boy here in a bit, as you know. So it's hard for the Allies in the game I played originally to get involved in the game. They're just kind of remote, or Russia is the one that is really set up to be confronted by Germany, but both Britain and America are kind of we'll say sea locked, or they're just looking for an avenue. And Japan is usually the one, of course, that will attack America by sea, right? Pearl Harbor, right? But it's hard for the Allies to, at the outset, confront the Axis. Unless talking about Russia, then Russia, wouldn't really make much of a dent in Germany unless they got lucky a little bit. But so, of course, the next most powerful country after Britain would be probably Japan, and it could be a little bit of a step up, at least initially. Japan is really buff in the Pacific, and the game makers really did a good job with the numbers of ships in the Pacific. I think it really, in the original game, and I think in the game I played, both of them, the numbers were just right, I think. So America loses its Pearl Harbor fleet, but they're not completely crippled, right? They still have some ships and things in other places, as well as California, and the United States, of course, has we'll get to the United States here more in a bit. But yeah, so I mean, once Japan takes Pearl Harbor, and it's a very, very, very good chance they will. It's tempting to keep going, maybe, but because of the strength of the United States, there's still a fair amount of ships and other things, tanks and planes in the United States, and there's enough of them that in Japan would you'd have to be kind of a kamikaze, so to speak, to try attacking Western United States. But Japan can still fight some other battles against England or Britain, whatever. I mean, and I think China is owned by Britain as well in the game. So they'll keep going, but most likely Japan will probably keep, bit by bit, have a gradual increase in territories. Or once the United States really gets into it, and the U.S. is really split again. I'll mention more of this, but they're really, first they're going to attack Japan, but they're going to want to get involved in Europe as well. So, Japan, yeah, their navy is pretty buff. Navy and planes. Okay, so Germany. Again, if Britain and the United States don't get involved, especially United States is kind of remote you know, kind of so to speak, if they're really involved with Japan, but the United States might be like, oh, how can we support the allies? So, and Russia's going to get definitely a few blows from Germany right off the bat. And Britain, if Britain is really cautious, I mean, Germany's just going to plow through a bunch of territory, and there's a really good chance. I mean, Germany could own the Mediterranean, could own Africa as well, and they could, almost put Russia out of its misery, just like so. I mean, Germany's really set up to go on a rampage, and that's the way the game is designed. And so it makes Germany, Germany's the second most powerful, obviously, country in World War II. And if it doesn't, though, see, if both Japan and Germany don't do that rampaging, take over a bunch of territory, the Allies will probably win. So it's because it's 3-on-2, no matter what someone says about Russia, they will still be very formidable if they're not taken out fairly early. They could become more formidable because Germany will be fighting both Britain and the United States. Germany took on a little bit more than they could handle, I think. This is so. But yeah, I mean, Germany's got a lot of tanks. So United States. So I mean, the United States at the outset has the highest industrial production number, and it will be taken down quite a bit if Japan is successful. And that's what might cause the Axis to really start kicking some tail, is if their onslaught is successful and they keep taking territories, and the Allies don't fight back and recover some of these territories. So again, because of the loss of Pearl Harbor, it's not too much of a loss, but America would be in its best interest for America to start producing. It'd be very, very smart about what we're just producing. A ship or two, most, and also transport and get those ship and planes Pacific, but make some transports and get some of those tanks and other stuff, over there to Europe ASAP, and make sure that those transports are protected by, so that's there's two priorities, and yet so already United States is it's key to the Allies' success for the United States to have victories, pretty soon. Maybe not the first or second turn, but after that point, maybe even the second turn. But, okay, that all being said, so I have some interest in this area, but there are many people that have more interest in World War II than I do. Okay. I won't mention too much about this, but there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube, a whole bunch of stuff that I've read that is just ludicrous. So I don't even know if I'll waste my time getting into all right now, but I guess in a nutshell, what would I do if I was German in Germany? I'd probably flee the country. I would kind of sense what was going on. The question is, would I be a Nazi? Most likely, if anyone were to be a Nazi, there would be just a regular guy who was just going with the flow, right? Most people wouldn't kill Jews cold-blooded, right? It was the situation where the evil folks in the country really took over for a while, and this should be clear to anyone. And for a long, long time, hatred against Jews was just boiling, the Middle East and Europe for a long, long time, long, long time. So there's so many reasons why the war happened. Uh, it was just, he's like, imagine this, tea kettle and boiling water. Eventually, just it's gonna, if it just keeps boiling, it's just the whole thing's might explode or something. I don't know. If you don't turn off the hot water or something. I don't know. And that's what World War II kind of was. It was this simmering, festering. I don't know. And coupled with, you get this crazy leader. It says all this stuff. Yeah. So, anyway, aside from that, and I've read comments about, from Russians about World War II. And here's the thing about Russia. Now, I talked about Germany here for a bit, and I mentioned that probably more than likely, if I was German in Germany, I would probably leave the country, right? Second, most likely situation, I would go along with what was going on. Honestly, I would. Just trying to keep out of the way of the bad stuff, and maybe I would want to keep my home and stuff. And play nice with everyone, hide Jews, perhaps, but act like I wasn't. I'd probably be one of those folks, Either one of the two. That's most likely I would never join the military. In that situation, especially. Well, I'm not really a military person myself, but I would definitely not join the military. If I was forced to join the military, gosh, what do? I could, if I ran away, I could be. That's a big stinking deal. Like, well, already in the German mindset, if you run away from your country, it's disgraceful. So, I would definitely, I don't know, that would be a rough situation. I'm trying to figure it out, but I'd defect to France, Switzerland, or something, and just do my best to keep my head low. I don't think that the Nazis would come after me in Switzerland, but just one little soldier. I don't know. So, yeah, it's crazy stuff. But I mean, there are people on YouTube that would, once they heard that from me, they'd say I was a coward. I was all these bad names. That gives you a state of things right now. There's some pretty rampant white supremacy going on in YouTube, and I don't know. It's heating up, folks. Just want to let you know. So, yeah. So, maybe they have reasons. It's a little different than it was in World War II, but we know why those things are happening right now. So, Russians, though. So the Russians want, we should give them more credit for holding off Germany. We really should. Because they lost a ton of guys, and they were outgunned, and they were just not in a good situation right off the bat. And it took time for them to get more powerful. Britain was the same way. Britain, maybe not quite as... Britain's situation wasn't quite as dire as Russia's, and it's maybe what the technology and that sort of thing. I think Britain still had Spitfire, planes they had fairly early on, as far as I remember. But Britain stepped it up, but Russia especially. Russia started to get better tanks toward the end of the war and stuff. But those Panzers, man, those German Panzers. Oh my gosh. It's just Blitzkrieg, and I don't know. So, I keep thinking about the movie Patton with World War II. His thoughts on Russia. So when the Allies were winning, right, and as Russia in Britain and the United States, Patton knew that the Russians. He had a feeling already that Russians were going to plan something. Right, this is our chance to take control of Eastern Europe and eventually maybe even more of Europe. Who knows? And he knew that they were imperialistic. The United States, though, it can be argued right back from Russians to the United States, and Britain had its colonies. Britain had its big empire, right? That empire, by the time we get to World War II, was starting to fizzle out, right? So Britain had its heyday in earlier times, and it was still very powerful, but not really what it once was. And Britain was okay with that. It was like, hey, maybe we had our our time in the sun. Now we're kind of passing off the baton here to a few other countries, right? America and Russia. Well, eventually just America. But what was I going to say? The question is, would I have approved of Patton right after Germany was defeated, going into Russia and defeating them? Kind of a preemptive strike? Because Patton knew that Russia was going to start doing its thing in Eastern Europe. I don't know if the Americans would be okay with one huge war. Tons of people lost their lives. And then on top of that, going right into Russia, right after that, it was almost like betraying an ally. But, Patton still knew that Russia was up to something. And they were. We realized that, but no one, during the Cold War, what happened was essentially Eastern Europe became communist. And there was the Iron Curtain, and it just was a stalemate, and nobody ever really. There were still occasional little skirmishes and things, but nothing big. Russia threatened a lot. United States, right back. And so everything worked out in 1990s. So I could see it going either way. If Patton, though, knowing Patton, if he had gone into Russia. We're talking about Patton here, right? And if he had the backing of the United States military, and if it was the U.S., and Britain especially, Germany's defeated, so I think Germany wouldn't be involved in this, but U.S. and Britain, at least maybe just the U.S. versus Russia, there's a really good chance that the United States would have taken out Russia. I'm trying to remember if Stalin was still in power at that point. I have to go back and check my stuff, but yeah, Pat makes a really good point. Again, he knew that Russia was planning something. He knew it, and we just didn't have the stomach for more war after Germany was defeated. That was a huge battle. So at least in the case of not fighting Russia, maybe more lives would have been spared. That would ultimately be better. But then again, we would have not had to deal with the Cold War and the effects of communism. But I will say this too. It's very evident that because you can see this with communist countries, former communist countries, because there was that Iron Curtain, and a lot of the culture of Western Europe and the United States didn't quite permeate that Iron Curtain. Not much got through. You had a lot more of a stagnation, and I don't call it stagnation, but the countries of Eastern Europe and Russia are much more old-fashioned compared to Western Europe and the United States. Culturally, now you can say what you want about technology and everything, but I think everything is in the economy and technology. The Eastern Europe's doing better and better, of course, than Russia do. But culturally, if you want to talk about who's wearing, traditional clothes and dresses and trousers for men and all these things, you're talking about traditional family values and things, and the nuclear family. Eastern Europe is what people like, right? We like Eastern Europe because they haven't been as corrupted by Western capitalism and Hollywood and feminism and all the stuff I was talking about earlier. So actually, that's a good thing. About now, I don't know. I wouldn't say I don't like communism necessarily. At least I think it was the original idea had some merit, but it's never been implemented the right way. It becomes totalitarianism. one person ruling, and he doesn't. Nah, it doesn't really work too well. I mean, just that initial idea has some merit, but no. So, so, but yeah, I mean, because you had this, not a whole lot got through the Iron Curtain culturally. A lot of the, yeah, I mean, we like how Eastern Europe isn't as secularized. So, I mean, you think communism crushed religion? Well, people maintained their standards and their culture even without the Orthodox Church being as big of a deal for a while. Now they're coming back to the Orthodox Church, and the Poles, their Catholic Church, and everything. And gosh, I love Eastern Europe, man. I mean, but a lot of these things are a bit more complex than we might realize. So, I mean, it's history. It all worked out. It all worked out. And the nice thing is, at least between Russia and the United States, we never had a war, a huge war. Imagine what that would do. Well, to say, well, we're still going to have, Armageddon at some point. Like, I'm not looking for. No one looks forward to war, unless you're. Some people maybe do. It's a certain kind of person like General Patton. And there's two different kinds of people look forward to war. One is really tough, brave, general soldier like that. The other one is just someone who loves to kill. That's a little bit questionable, I think, morally. So I don't know. Anyway, leave me your thoughts and comments below. Talk to you guys later.